Collin.
Fralloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic Podcast number 962, November 10th. This is the anniversary of the F. Scott Fitzgerald.
I heard that.
No. The F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Well,
Thanks,
the
Terry
F.
Train.
You're making a little joke there.
No, he said that to honor Terry.
69 degrees was the record on this day. That was recently, 2012, and it was 3 degrees on this day in 1986.
And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Heidt in the newsroom, and of course, the Rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
We have Liz Collins with us. Many of you will know Liz Collins from her years on...
Collin, no S.
Colin.
I'm sorry.
Strike one.
Obviously, I don't know her.
I've been called worse.
Liz Collin, who for years was on Channel 4. From when to when, by the way?
I was there beginning in 2008 and was there for 14 years. So,
And
just
why
left
are you
last
not
year.
there now?
All right, we're getting right into it.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Were you fired?
I was demoted after the George Floyd incident. My husband was at the time the Minneapolis Police Union president.
Bob Kroll.
Yep, and he's since retired, but I was never given my position back. I was a longtime anchor at WCCO, was basically promoted to the position 6 months after I started there back in 2008, and it was clear that my voice and especially the person I was married to, I was definitely, it was clear that I needed to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
What does that tell you about the media in general in the Twin Cities?
Well, partly another reason I left, Joe, is I was so tired of pushing the propaganda at the station where I worked. We were especially left, and we were always left. I knew that. I was never political because I'm a journalist, right? But I was always more conservative in my beliefs and such. But it really got to a point with COVID, with this narrative of police are the bad guys. I could go on and on just about different storylines. But we didn't care about the other side anymore. It was sort of this lies by omission, I feel like. We were privy to all of this information. People are giving us tips and et cetera. But we were crafting in a way that I don't think we were actually informing the public. And I needed to go elsewhere because all of these people, I think, and their stories were being ignored. So that's what I'm hoping to do now at Alpha News. And we've been doing for about 9 months or so. They've been around for a little while, but I like the fact they're uncensored and unafraid. That's our slogan.
You're here because you have a new book, and it's called They're Lying, The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. Who's they? Who's lying?
Well, the media, the left.
Yeah.
right there. But the story is a little bit about my own kind of front row seat to this movement we saw in Minneapolis and then went across the country as well. But I was so troubled as a wife and a mom, but more so as a journalist. Again, all of this information that we're not asking questions from the very beginning. The body cameras, they're not released in this incident, and there's a reason for that. The background of George Floyd. It's really laid out in this book about all the things that were not talked about from the very beginning that I believe an entire generation, Joe, of Minnesotans will pay for as a result of this. Minneapolis, we've seen what's happened, and again, the media was basically grandstanding and, in my opinion, cheerleading this from the very begining. And they should have been asking questions.
You mentioned off the air something interesting. You wish this book had come out before the election.
It did. I think it just needed to come out a little bit sooner. But in Minnesota, the research that I've done, I really go after the players that I feel got a free pass from the very beginning with what played out. We had the perfect people in the perfect positions for this to happen. Keith Ellison is named quite a bit in the book and his background and such. But that's a topic that even, again, we saw the mainstream media barely even touch him during the election season. Mm-hmm. And his past is quite troubling. He has 5 police officers in prison now, and this was his plan all along. We'll see how this all plays out with him being reelected, which is astonishing to me. But I feel that, again, the mainstream media they weren't putting the pieces together because it felt like, to me, there was more activism going on than actual journalism.
What is it that you contend in the book that George Floyd was not purposely killed by the police?
Well, I think it's that's fair to say, but more than that, we're hearing from Derek Chauvin for the very first time, from Thomas Lane, who's serving his sentence now in Colorado. But it's really laid out in several different sections. And the question is always asked, well, did he die of a drug overdose? And I think the answer is I don't think we know, because no one has been honest about it. As noted by the medical examiner, the county attorneys, just hours after the autopsy, there were multiple factors, and we saw that words kind of disappear from documents, and I have a lot of documentation in the book. And we really go into also the court case, right? So Derek Chauvin is found guilty of these 3 charges. So, of course, he's guilty, right? But there is a lot playing out in court that people never had any idea. And the response I've gotten to the book has really just been amazing. It's been an Amazon bestseller for about 3 weeks now since we released it. But it really goes to show that I think so many people knew there was more going on and they weren't being told from the very beginning. And there was a reason they weren't.
What about what I saw?
Yeah, and I think that's the question, right? We didn't even know that 3 other officers were involved because there was a reason that the body cam videos were held for so long. If you remember, it was about 2.5 months before the body cameras were even released, and at that point they were leaked to a media outlet. You had to sign up to see the body cam footage. But again, it really boiled down to, this is a black and white story. If you say anything else, you're racist. This is a white officer and this is a black man, and that was the narrative and how it was crafted from the very beginning. Nobody talks about the black officer, J. Alexander King, who was with George Floyd 15 minutes for much longer than Derek Chauvin ever was. This is a black officer. Again, this was about race from the very beginning, and there was so much more to the story.
But what about what I saw, the knee on the neck?
Well, and it came out.
And I'm a Minnesotan watching this, and I'm saying, get off his neck.
Right.
Just get off.
Right. And we talk about all of this in the book. It's another thing that happens in the course of this, and what Derek talks about in the book, is there is this MRT training, maximum restraint technique, where the knee is more on the shoulder blade, which also the chief, Chief Madera Arredondo at the time, admits to that. Once he sees a different angle of the video, he says on the stand, it does appear that his knee isn't there. And this is, again, the damage has been done. It's a year later. But also this MRT manual quickly disappears offline. It goes offline from the training manual. And isn't put back online for weeks. And again, we hear from the police department from the very beginning, this isn't part of training, we've never seen this maneuver before, et cetera, et cetera. Well, again, just another one of the many, many lies that were told from the beginning.
Now, you, at the time, were still with Channel 4.
Right.
You're still leading newscasts.
No, I was basically put on COVID patrol for about 2 years, and that was the only subject I was allowed to report on. But only one side of COVID, Joe. There was many other stories we could have tackled, but we were just chasing around the governor and pushing get your shot, even when people started to say, hey, I'm experiencing side effects or whatnot. So again, that's another story. There was a lot more too that we weren't interested in telling.
What role did COVID play in the coverage of George Floyd?
Another, I think another good question, and this is, I didn't know Chris even he was allowed to ask questions.
No, you know what, Liz, he shouldn't.
Okay.
Wow.
Have you seen John Heidt behind you, by the way?
Yeah, we said hi.
Yeah, John and I go way back.
Oh, okay.
I do have a question. Too,
okay.
When we're done, go ahead.
I was just going to say, again, an important question too, because at this time everybody's cooped up, and I think a lot of the riots can be blamed on a lot of that as well. I will say too that we talked to a lot of officers in this book that have never shared their story before, which I think is really eye-opening about how they're stuck in the precinct. how the plan by their administration, by city leaders, is for one of them to be harmed as sort of a reparation in a way. I think their stories are absolutely heartbreaking, and what's led to this mass exodus from Minneapolis police ever since.
John, would you go ahead?
Yeah, Liz, a question I have about, I don't disagree with a lot about what you said there about the whole thing with making Chauvin kind of the sacrificial lamb. And I haven't read the book. I'm sorry. I wish I had.
You guys, I mean, didn't I send you guys the book?
No, you did not.
I think I sent a PDF.
It's probably my fault.
Yeah, Chris has 4 copies.
But
anyway.
but John, just a minute. Let me interrupt for a moment. I'm breaking a law. I've told you this off the air. You're the first author I've interviewed where I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
But I wanted you as a guest because I think it's so timely given the election, which I want to bring us back to talk about. John, go ahead.
And I think the whole racial end of it, you're correct too. It turned into a racial thing when it shouldn't have. But do you think, and I know the testimony from the original trials, et cetera, would seem to indicate that the folks, the pathologists, et cetera, thought the death certainly was caused by his actions. In the book, do you address that? Do you think that's true? Do you think it's not true?
Yeah, I think
it's kind of, yeah.
Yep,
Go ahead.
I do talk about that, and I think what's interesting when I'm talking about what's happening behind the scenes with the prosecution, they created so many conflicts of interest that Eric Nelson talks to me about this, who's Chauvin's attorney, that they couldn't even get a medical examiner to. Ellison brings on more than a dozen attorneys from the very beginning, and they're making phone calls to different medical examiners across the country. So they really had a hard time even getting someone to testify, on their behalf for the defense because they created these conflicts of interest from the beginning.
Okay.
But we do go into that, and really, it's we let people see for themselves. A lot of people don't know that there were 3 autopsies done on George Floyd. One by the Hennepin County Medical Examiner, obviously, and then one basically paid for by the family. They were released just within hours of each other, and the media ran with what they called the independent autopsy, which was, again, paid for by the family. And the bottom line was he died from what he saw in the video, and that's actually in the document. And then we also go into the federal government, their role in this case, because I think a lot of people didn't know that as well. The FBI was involved from the very beginning, too, and sat in on meetings with the medical examiner as we saw him kind of backtrack and change his story in the days that followed.
Would it have made a difference to say that George Floyd died from a drug overdose? Would that erase the 9 minutes that everyone can't unsee?
I think the question is, many things could have changed. The riots didn't have to happen. Instead of taking a step back, actually explaining this training, that this was a part of training, we saw a mayor make this about race immediately, right? He's apologizing to Black America from the very, very beginning. And there was also a chief that echoed that exact same message. The top law enforcement officer, the Attorney General's office, same thing. That's the narrative. And as this is shown in even history, that doesn't work. That actually makes people more angry, and I think fueled the fire, if you will, here. I think there was and I have to go back to just the timing, not only COVID, but we have a presidential election coming up in months, right? And we are going to oust President Trump no matter what, and this is the perfect scenario, in a way, for politicians to pounce on. So the autopsy is done on George Floyd within 12 hours. Why do we hear about the autopsy and what the results are a week later, after Minneapolis is allowed to burn? These are the questions I thought journalists should be asking from the beginning.
How did this change urban Minneapolis?
An excellent question. I think that it will be a decade before things come back. I mean, the people, I worked and I lived in that city for 12 years myself, and I'm out in the burbs now. But I know a lot of people. I don't know if it's similar for you guys, that people just refuse to go there, which I think is very sad. And I'm also struck too how the media, they don't really go back to this area. This isn't. I was part of Candace Owens and her Daily Wire team did a documentary on Black Lives Matter. and walked the streets of 38th in Chicago and went into that a little bit. But I thought this was a story. Again, it's conservative media, so I know it's going to be ignored completely by the mainstream media. But this is an organization, Black Lives Matter, who got $80 million in donations, basically on the back of George Floyd.
Right.
And
much of it spent fraudulently.
Right. And that's the point of the documentary. And Bob and I talked a little bit about that because, in a way, Black Lives Matter, they came after us, too. They were in front of our house 2 different times.
Right.
One where they're bashing piñata effigies of us in the driveway. And it's just amazing how that has just, the media doesn't go back and actually look at the cost here.
Do you want to give Liz a bit of a smile?
Sure.
Play the John Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
This is a roll call vote.
It was sent to us by a mole.
When this
A roll call vote,
when
okay.
this lunatic Thompson was still a legislator.
There we go.
And it's pretty funny. Listen closely.
Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Mortensen.
Mortensen, no.
Mortensen, no. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Thompson.
Hear the
Thompson, aye.
Thompson, aye. Mecklin.
Wow.
Somebody
Wow.
planted a siren. I thought you'd get a kick out of it.
But when we first were sent the audio, Liz, what you'll love is we all thought, because everyone, again, was all working remotely
Yeah.
and voting remotely, and we
Wow.
thought, this idiot is getting stopped while he's trying to make a vote.
That's-
But turns out it was planted by a fellow legislator.
That's quite funny.
Which almost made it better.
That's right.
Are you the only one in town who could have
funny.
written this or would have written this?
Oh, I think so. I had the joy of being canceled already, so
You mean by
Yeah.
CBS affiliate?
yeah. But I think my just experience is, and I never reported on George Floyd at all while I was there at WCCO. Again, I was hard at work with COVID. But there was a reason for that with Bob's position. But then he retired, and again, a year passes, and it was clear that I wasn't wanted there. But we've seen this again in newsrooms across the country. I think especially here in Minneapolis as well, that the conservative viewpoint really isn't wanted anymore. You kind of have to go along with the program. You got to just get in line and go woke.
How do you
if you
compare?
will.
How do you compare that? Because I'm sure you have friends all over the country. How do you compare this market in that regard to other large markets across the country?
Very, very similar story.
We call it the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings, you are fated, F-A-T, to be led by the left. And the post-George Floyd world has increased that, I think.
Oh, 100%.
In Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, here, New York, Chicago. And who is your audience for this book? Who do you want to read this?
Anybody who cares about the truth.
Glenn Fry, I said. Jacob Fry is not going to read it.
I'm actually going to take one to his office soon, so I'll drop it off.
And in Minneapolis right now, if you had to put your reporter's hat back on and you were at CCO, can you even figure out who's in charge of law enforcement in Minneapolis?
Well, the thing is, it's always been the mayor. So one would argue, why would he think that this is a good leadership strategy to throw his entire department under the bus? I think we've seen how that has played out. We're talking about the woke culture. I'll just say, even after George Floyd, at CCO, there's a mandate put in place, Joe, about who we can interview. 50% of the people we interview have to be in a protected class or of color. Mm-hmm. This is the definition of racism, as far as I'm concerned. And we are news people. And again, this is the propaganda that, and I'm kind of alone going, what the hell are we doing? But again, I could give many examples as to how this all.
Well, it's safe to assume that they'll never recognize this book.
Yeah, no mainstream media has reached out, Joe.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. The Star Tribune will not
No.
review this book.
No.
Well, and like you
No.
said, you've been canceled. You've been ostracized. So nobody's ever going to reach out, I'm guessing.
Liz, are you good on time?
Yeah. I mean, if
I have 7 million questions I want to ask.
7 million. Joe's not going to let you actually ask any.
Probably not.
So,
I might get one in.
7 million. I want to tell you that before we take a break, we're talking with Liz Collin, who has written "They're Lying: The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd." I think I can I think I have a clarifying question about that. I want to talk to you about Eckberg Lammers. We're all going to die. Well, that's a timely situation, isn't it? And you need your estate in order, and that's what Eckberg Lammers does. They've been doing it for more than 70 years. And we all have stuff, and you don't want it to fall into the hands of the courts. They can save you taxes. They can solve some family problems. Maybe you're selling a cabin. There's divorce. There's kids problems. They handle everything, but most principally an estate plan. And as I mentioned to you, don't be worried about the word estate. It can be a little amount or a great amount, but you want it handled smoothly for your family. You don't want that to fall into the hands of the court system. Call Eckberg Lammers and make an appointment. It's terribly important. I don't care how old you are. Call Eckberg Lammers at 651-439-2878 or visit eckberglammers.com/will.
It's Positive Thursday once again here in Garage Logic, and that means we pick up the phone and we call Mike Schoonover of Schoonover Body Works and Glass up in Shoreview, 1060 County Road E up in Shoreview, by the way. The official sponsor of not only Positive Thursday, but the official body shop of Garage Logic, and Mike is on the line. Hi, Michael. You have to deal with me today, not Kenny. How are you?
Hey, Chris. It's good to be here with you today.
All right, so me being the dum-dum of the group, so what kind of steps should people be taking in terms of getting their car ready for winter this time of the year?
Well, it's a good topic because the other shoe is going to drop tomorrow, I think. So this humidity is going to go away really quick.
Yeah, I'm with you.
No, so it's just a good reminder for people to think about winter, to think about icy roads. Tires are probably the number one consideration of that people should think about. The importance of tires. If you haven't had your tires rotated or you haven't had your tires looked at, look at them, see what condition they're in, and if you're able to, if you can afford to, buying a set of winter tires and buying a set of summer tires would be ideal because I don't know, Reeves, have you ever driven on winter tires in the winter?
Oh boy, have I ever? Yes.
It's just it's like walking on ice with those broom ball shoes. You just got that traction. So if you're able to do that, get some winter tires on there, or at least get some new tires on there, so you got a good tread on there. And then obviously you got to check the wipers, the wiper blades, and make sure you got your car packed with the ice scraper and all that stuff, and just make sure that you're ready for winter.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that because for people like me, too, that have the 750-mile round-trip commute, winter tires do make a huge difference. And it can cut down, from when I have that 2-hour commute here to Hubbard Broadcasting, it'll cut it down to maybe 1:15. So it does help, but you are right. It makes a world of difference to have winter tires.
Reeves, that doesn't mean you can go faster in snow and ice.
You also can't stop any faster, I've learned over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's that time of year. So GLers, let's plan for the worst and hope for the best, and be ready for whatever Mother Nature throws at us.
So you heard it. Whether it's getting your car ready for winter, glass, bodywork, whatever the case might be. Trust who we trust here in Garage Logic. Every one of the staff members have all checked in with Schoonover Body Works and have had something done over the course of time. And get ready to hear from me again, by the way, Mike. I'm sorry to inform you over the air. But it doesn't matter. Give them a call today, 651-483-6756, or you can look them up online as well at schoonoverbodyworks.com. Michael, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Reeves. Have a good day.
Oh, we have the Heidts again.
It's a treat this week.
It is. Oh, yeah. Turn around, Liz. That's John and his kid, Dylan. Very nice, boys. Thank you, boys.
Why are you Italian?
I think we're done, Bill.
I was doing Lawrence well.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was coming from the computer. Amazing.
Here's
Great job.
Liz Collin is with us, longtime newscaster, now with Alpha News, and the book is called They're Lying, The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. What was simmering in American culture? What was simmering that became an explosion on the death of George Floyd? In other words, Minneapolis, as recently as when had the Super Bowl?
2000. Well, it was February of 2018.
2018, and then as recently as when had the Final Four?
I believe it was the year prior.
Yep.
And as recently as in the winter of 2020, Minneapolis was still flourishing with its cafe society and people thinking it was really cool to live in the warehouse district, and there was shopping and life was viable and not dangerous. And then the George Floyd date came along in May of 2020, and it erupted. So what was taking place beneath the surface of that presumed calmness and safety and normality that suddenly went nuts with George Floyd?
I think that we talked a little bit about that before with President Trump. I mean, we saw a lot of animosity against him, people not liking, his style and mean tweets and such. And I don't really think that can be underplayed in the incident as well, ousting him at all costs. I mean, maybe you guys can weigh in on this as well. And I also think that, again, the pandemic played a bit of a role, too. People had a lot of free time. Kids had a lot of free time to get in trouble, et cetera. So I think that people were wearing masks and could dress up as bad guys pretty easily. We see a lot of the COVID masks being put to good use in crimes still.
You're right. No, you're right.
I've never seen a political, even where I was working before, it was very obvious just the bias against him as president. Just some of my husband's experiences also. Trump comes to town, asks Bob to be on stage with him at Target Center. Jacob Fry mandates that police officers who are going to show their support for President Trump cannot wear their uniforms. And they've done that for years. Even, Democrats who they supported, the unions have supported in the past, they never took away the fact that they couldn't wear their uniforms, which is how these Cops for Trump red T-shirts, came into play. But, there are so many just anecdotal stories, and I think that presidential election had a lot to do with it.
But Floyd was kindling, and his death was a spark, and the world erupted. It just erupted. It wasn't even in this country alone. It was across the globe. And you had to be feeling entirely alone. Even though you were on COVID duty at the station, you had to feel entirely alone in your thoughts about this.
Yeah,
and how much of that is because of who you were married to?
I think there were a lot of us who even, I think that, again, police officer families in general were canceled after this. And, thankfully I have a lot of good friends, who believe in backing the blue. But we knew from the very beginning everybody is painted with this broad brush after this incident that everyone's racist and you're a bad person if you're a police officer. And I just grew up knowing that that's not the case at all. These are the most caring individuals. Again, not to say that there's not bad police officers. There's bad everything. But it was just this broad brush that everybody went bananas.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I remember the day after when we came in, it was Memorial Day weekend, and we came in here, and I was furious because my father was a deputy sheriff for 30 years. And I said, no one hates bad cops more than good cops.
Right.
Nobody, period. It's just fact. And I got some backlash for that, and I can't even imagine the amount of backlash that you've received from publishing this book.
And actually, I would say that more than anything, there's been support with this book because, again, something was wrong about this kind of story from the beginning, and what people were saying was just not reality.
Do you think because of who we have as mayors and city council people and legislators that it was impossible for the Floyd story to be told the way you're now telling it?
I do, and this isn't. I go into some backstories of MPD as well because I think this is interesting. I don't know if you guys remember a story where two police officers, they picked out some garbage in a back alley in North Minneapolis around the 4th Precinct, and they decorated a Christmas tree.
I remember that.
Yeah, to upset one of their supervisors who spent a lot of time decorating this tree. Well, Mayor Fry goes. Somebody from the community sends him a picture of the tree and says this is racist, and he puts on social media right away, doesn't check anything, doesn't talk to anybody, puts on social media, these officers will be fired within 24 hours. We will not stand for this. Well, it turns out they got their jobs back. But everything was about race with this mayor, and even prior to that, Betsy Hodges showed no support for the police either. She gave the precinct, the 4th precinct, to protesters for 18 days, and in fact, she wanted to give them the precinct where the firing range is for officers. That was her plan before, and so again, this is Jacob Fry crafting the plan that they're going to give away the 3rd precinct, which they did, and we see how well that went.
Are you getting national attention for this book?
From conservative media,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I was on with Joe Pag's, Dennis Prager's show, and that's what's sad to me. Also, the way the media works now. Again, lying by omission. That's what I think is happening.
Do you think you're a conservative or just a normal person?
I thank you. That is actually a compliment if you think I know. But yes, I really just think that, like, what happened to common sense? And
Right.
we're not racists, and we're not horrible people. We're not extreme. We're not right wing. It's just not. It's not reality. I guess I've always been a critical thinker, but it's sort of part of your job.
You grew up in Worthington.
Right.
What'd your dad do for a living?
He still works, but he's a small business owner, a fuel truck driver.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
What about Mom?
She was a stay-at-home mom. There's
Yep.
4 of us,
Yep.
so she got us through school and sports and all that jazz.
Yes, John.
Liz, I have a question, and this might be too personal to answer. It might not.
Oh, okay.
Your former colleagues,
Yes.
reporters, anything. You knew people obviously at all the stations, not just WCCO. Do you, still have interactions, or are they all just saying, just pushing you off to the side and wishing to never speak with you again?
Yeah, I think the world I live in now, I kind of attack the mainstream media. It's
Yeah,
sort of the
sure.
world I live in. But I think that was the problem. So this isn't like that I witnessed this and I left. I mean, I hung around for a couple years afterward. But here's what I saw, and I think that this is why the country is so messed up. These people who I've spent a great time of 15 years with, they knew who I was. They wouldn't go to bat for me publicly. They'd tell me privately that they supported me, but there was no public. I tried to get a job in the market at other television stations. Somebody told me at Care 11 that I could be behind the scenes. They wouldn't put me in front of the camera, of course.
Wow.
I won't say
And
anything
this
about
is-
KSTP, but they wouldn't even consider me for.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is before you wrote the book.
Oh yes, yeah. I just knew that I love reporting. I really do, and I love that people turn to me to tell stories. And I think it's so important to give Minnesotans a voice. And I had a loyal following at WCCO. I mean, I was the highest rated weekend anchor in the market, and held that position for more than 10 years. I was the main fill-in for the main anchors at WCCO, Frank and Amelia, and
Have
always
you remained
did
close
well.
to them?
They're nice people. Yeah, but again, I think there were
That's
a lot of
hell of a charitable answer.
I think there were a lot of people that, but again, these are people who have a platform and they know that this is wrong, and this is what bothered me and still does to this day about all of this and so many things. But there's a lot of just go along to get along,
Right.
And I've just never been that kind of person. So.
Right.
Well, and I was going to say, because I also know a lot of people that work in this market and share your sentiment, but are unwilling to do so publicly. And
Right.
and I'm basically just backing up what you said earlier. But to me, that's a shame, because you're doing a disservice to the public in that regard, because you're basically getting one side of the story.
Well, and I feel like, you look at what happened to me. It's career suicide to
Exactly.
step out
Yeah.
of that narrative, right? But Mike Max, for example, great friend, and I think he was canceled at WCCO Radio because he kind of publicly admitted that he's a conservative.
Well, he was talking the truth about downtown Minneapolis.
Right. But it just boggles my mind how that side is, and that's what I talk about in the book. The left isn't a Democrat or a liberal. It's really this side that has now grown to, you can't think anything else. You can't disagree with us. That's what the left is to me.
What are you pointing at?
That's
me
exactly what you've been saying for how long on this show?
for? Oh,
Well, if
Joe, you're a smart
what
guy.
What I like is because I'm considered, Liz, a little more the liberal of this show. These guys always have my back and defended me last week on air. So it's been the opposite of what happened to you.
Good people over here. It's good.
Well, but that's the beauty of the show is we all don't agree politically 100% on everything, and the problem is,
Well, if you don't do what I tell you, you're fired.
that's right.
Okay, well,
But the problem is, as a collective, we've lost that ability where you
Yes.
all of a sudden have to check every box on
Right.
one side, or you're either with us or you're against us, and that's so bass-ackwards of a way of thinking.
Liz, I'm hearing, as you speak, I'm hearing your next book.
Oh, he's a publisher now.
which is what?
Your take on the media in this country.
Yeah, I have quite a bit about that in the book as well.
I'm going to read the book, and I'm going to be
Okay,
interested in that.
good.
Well, as I said, I never have interviewed an author without reading the book, but you obviously had no intention of ever getting me one, so I couldn't read it in time.
Not
They are begging
true.
for a
But
book.
I'll say that I never even had an intention to write a book. This wasn't part of the plan.
Then why did you?
Why did you?
I've always felt that information is power, and people weren't getting the information. And again, as a Minnesotan, it bothered me that we were lied to from the very beginning, and I just don't think that so much of this had to happen.
All right, so I want to ask you about the next steps for you personally, because you and I were chatting on our walk down here about Joe. She used to work at one of our affiliates, radio down in Worthington.
I did not know that.
And I only learned that today in walking down the hallway with her. But obviously you now have a platform on Alpha News, and I'm not diminishing them by any means. We go to them all the time for information. But what are the next steps for someone like you? That's essentially been canceled in the Minneapolis market.
This is my 5-year plan. I hope to continue work at Alpha. I think there really is a need for conservative media in Minnesota.
I don't even think it's conservative.
Well, and that's kind of my thought too. I think
They're just covering stuff that doesn't get
doesn't
covered.
get covered.
Right. Yeah.
We get so many great tips every day, and I'm so thankful that people kind of followed me over there. They believe in our mission there, and so many people have turned off the news. That
Yep.
goes to show just with ratings. I think the future is internet news. That's people are just going to go with where the truth is or who's telling the best stories. And I think that there's a growing market for that.
That's why I like to tell Joe all the time that when I prepare for this show, I like to get all my news from Twitter. He loves that.
Which infuriates me. Well, people certainly aren't reading newspapers to the degree they once
Right.
did.
Right.
They're not paying attention to the local newscasts to the degree they once did. I think it's resulted in a lot of uninformed voters, but the society has changed so dramatically. Help me get this. Now, I'm going to read the book, and maybe this will be answered for me. But where do you counsel me when I say I'm among those who watched what happened with that knee, and I watched the 9 minutes, and I just had the feeling, and I've said this before, I had the feeling Chauvin was not there, that he lost it. That
Mentally, yeah.
That his eyes were he had the faraway look. Counsel me.
No, I think that's a very good question and something addressed in the book as well.
Do you know him, by the way?
Yes, we've had many conversations with him, and I talked to his mom and such.
No, I mean prior to this. Did you know?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right. Yeah.
But I think that nobody can look at that video and say, "Oh, it looks horrible. It's horrific." I mean, that's everybody's reaction, of course. If not, I think something might be wrong with you. But just talking to the other officers that are there, it's just so interesting as to what is actually transpiring. What they're actually. There's a decrease in their force, if you will, because they can tell that he takes a turn. They're trying to get the ambulance there sooner. You even have Thomas Lane jumping in the ambulance, if you remember. And there's this narrative of they did nothing to help him, and these are officers who were there on the job for just days. And you jump in when a senior officer is telling you to do one thing. So to answer your question. I think we definitely go into that, and one could argue about a manslaughter charge or, something along. But with all of these officers being charged in the way that they were basically guilty from the very beginning.
Liz Collin, and the book is available everywhere.
It is on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and if folks want more information, just on I'm keeping a blog, and I'm doing some book talks around Minnesota. Haven't been canceled yet. At thelieexposed.com is the website.
What about Barnes & Noble?
They haven't contacted me yet, but we'll see.
But you did
We'll
say
see.
Amazon.
It's on. It is on Amazon. Yep.
It's called They're Lying, The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. Liz Collin, Collin, yes?
Just one question for me, as I'm only going to do one of the 7 million I'd written down.
That's all you get.
All right. So you had basically, we talked about the election in the beginning. In your mind, how different would the results of Tuesday had been had this been 2020 and not 2022? In other words, I personally think, and I was very, what was the word I was using yesterday? Despondent upon the results. Just basically saying that the voting public in the state of Minnesota seemed to just forget what happened 2 years ago. What we had to live through, whether it was the lockdowns,
In other
the riots,
words, we
whatever.
reelected the same characters.
We reelected the same people that put us in this position 2 years ago. What's your thought on that?
You know, and I wish I had a better answer, because I've never seen, and I'm 40. I've never seen a voting public so fired up and ready for change. And again, I just go back to it. People don't have to live like this. This doesn't have to be a reality. We don't have to have 450 carjackings in Minneapolis a year. Before they never even kept track of that number. But I also think the media is quick to, and I worked in this environment, quick to go on to the next shiny object. They don't ever go back and sometimes offer context or tell some of those stories that should have been told from the beginning. And so it's always on to the next thing, on to the next snowstorm, et cetera. So I think it kind of helps the public sometimes move on in their minds as well. And that's why we do longer term stories, I think, at Alpha, or take a step back. I'm actually going to the U.S.-Mexico border in a couple days to do that as a Minnesota media outlet, because I don't think anybody else is making the trip.
Wow.
What the heck really is going on there?
Yeah.
Be fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm working with a lot of people that are more of that mindset, if you will, that we just need a better picture, and we need to have these conversations instead of just shutting up and moving on to the next train wreck.
Wow.
You're aware of the Center of the American Experiment.
Yes, we work with them quite a bit.
They're the original pushback people in the state of Minnesota, and they've rejoined us, and I'm so thrilled because they're doing their Turkey Awards, where they salute the greatest waste of money in the state of Minnesota, including the $250 million food fraud.
Yeah, I was going to say it has to go there this year, right?
Well, there's some good ones, Liz. They got $1.3 million to the DNR for a program to get kids to go outside. Here's the door.
Wow.
Open the door. You're outside now, but we're going to pay $1.3 million for that. And the government even came up with $20,000 to promote outrageous home remedies for COVID-19. No, we were only told 2 remedies: mask and vaccine.
Right.
And but they were paying for that. They have a great website, AmericanExperiment.org. Great newsletters. They bring in speakers. As I say, they started the pushback in the state of Minnesota, and they certainly realize they have their work cut out for them, especially after this election. But you can weigh in on the 2022 Golden Turkey Awards. Just go to AmericanExperiment.org.
Hey GLers, it's Reavers here, and you've heard me talk about my relationship with Josh Arnold for quite some time now. And the reason I advocate that you give Josh a call is simple. Well, actually, it's 2 reasons: trust and results. Josh has seen it all when it comes to economic and market conditions. As he says, past results do not guarantee future returns. Well, that is true. Josh can make sure that your retirement objectives match your investments. And you can trust Josh to make sure that you are not paying more in fees than you are selling in returns. Yes, that is more common than you would think. So do yourself a favor by booking a 48-minute free consultation that has absolutely no obligation. Call Josh today at 952-925-5608. That number, once again, is 952-925-5608. You will be glad you did.
Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant LLC, a security investment advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk. All comments and opinions are Josh Arnold's and do not constitute investment advice.
Chris Reavers is a paid endorser.
Seafoamworks.com is an excellent source on the proper use of all the Seafoam products. They also have some really good advice on their website on reviving bad-running small engines. Now, if you don't know how, it's really nothing to fear. It's pretty easy to learn. Basically, throw in a new plug, new air cleaner, clean that carb out. A blast of top engine cleaner from Seafoam will do that. Clean out that gas tank. That means drain it. And then use fresh gas with a gulp of Seafoam motor treatment. The motor treatment can also be used to stabilize your fuel for up to 2 years. You hear us talking about that all the time on GL, making it ideal for storing your seasonal stuff. And everything it does for small engines, it's also going to do for your automobile, truck, tractor, and everything else, both gas and diesel powered. It's great preventive medicine. And it's great for reviving engines and trannies, too, for that matter, with Seafoam Tranny Tune. You got to check out this website. Pop around on it. Check it out, seafoamworks.com. And you can buy the stuff almost anywhere. That's what I love about them. Our local company with a global reach and a true miracle in a world of bad gas, Seafoam.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and he feels fine. Joe Souchere.
It is.
Oh, that is cool. Thank you, boys. John Heidt and Dylan Heidt.
The dueling
I think we're
heights.
done, Dale.
Oh, that's right. He doesn't have headphones on.
The conclusion we might have reached yesterday, rightly or wrongly, is that one of the reasons we see the elections turn out the way they do is this tremendous push by the left, most principally by the left, to urge more and more and more people to vote.
Right.
And they're succeeding at that. And certainly everyone has a right to vote. I understand that. But it stands to reason the more people you urge to vote, the more likely you are to be also corralling some people who have no earthly idea what they're doing, but it becomes rather festive, and you're seeing sports celebrities advertising it. And, Geno, what's the Seattle quarterback?
Geno Smith.
Geno Smith comes on and says, you got to get to the polls, and everybody does, and they don't know what they're doing. But I had a new thought.
But their heart might be in the right place, advocating for such a thing.
I guess, but but urban America will not change. I don't see a change. It will require a sea change, and I just don't see it for these very reasons. But I thought of something else. It's a bit troubling. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I saw a news. I think it might have been Channel 4. Given what Liz Collin just told us, it would not surprise me at all if it was Channel 4. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It might have been 5 or 11, but I think it was 4. And they were doing a little celebratory piece on somebody named Lee Finke. Are you aware of this?
No.
No.
In fact, go get my briefcase for me, please. I need to look up something in there. Lee Finke got elected to the House of Representatives. And she, of course, is the first. She's the first. Oh, never mind. It's in a drawer under the printer. I'm looking for my legislative guide. Gotcha. Lee Finke is the first transgender lawmaker voted into office in the state. Mm-hmm. And he or she has pink hair and I guess you get to wear your hair any color you want, and God bless Lee. District 62 is what I was after. So let me just real quickly find that. I don't know where this is.
She is actually in 66A, according to what I'm seeing.
I'm pardon?
66A.
She's in 66A.
I'm sorry, 66A.
Yeah.
66A is, where the hell is it? That's St. Paul.
Oh.
Yeah, 66A.
Maybe you voted for her.
No. 66A is the east side. Or no, it's the Como area. It's the Como area.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Between Como and Lake Phalen, for example. and this trans won the race, and it occurred to me that when she was being talked to by the reporter, we've reached the point where so many uninvested people, by uninvested I mean in the larger civic wellness of an urban area, we've reached the point where people are getting elected and they're using the legislature to address their personal grievances.
Oh, yeah.
It was never intended to be a body to accommodate personal grievances. It was intended to be a body of lawmakers who were addressing everyone. And all I heard when this person was being interviewed was the pride in being able to now address trans issues. Well, that's great, but that on my list, Lee, that's about 480th on my list of priorities. You're not supposed to go there worried only about trans issues. She will replace Alice Hausman. Are you sure it's 66A?
66A is what I'm looking at, Joe. She ran against Trace
Yeah, you're
Johnson.
right. You're right.
Yep.
66A, Minnesota House of Representatives.
Well, what did you think? It was
but
outstate Minnesota?
Listen to what Finke ran on. Abortion.
Sure.
Mental health in schools.
Okay,
I've
that's
warned
fair.
you to be careful of the mental
yeah.
health movement. And LGBTQ issues.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're bringing nothing to the table.
So,
Lee, you're bringing nothing to the table for the common good. I thought you people were all about the common good, the collectiveness. This has nothing to do with civic wellness. Nothing. This has to do with your personal concerns. And why?
Well, but also, doesn't it also suggest that it's just the basic buzzwords that are going to get her elected to office, essentially?
On Wednesday morning, Finke turned to Twitter to address the victory. Many stories will be written about Minnesota's election, she said in a tweet, quoting the Victory Fund. I don't know what that is. One undeniable story is the rise of queer political power. Okay, fine, but that has nothing to do with paying taxes and sending kids to school
Street
and
maintenance.
working. And what does this have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Nothing.
When you go to ballot, I don't know if you've ever done this, Joe, Ballotpedia.
Yes, I have.
And she answers the questions.
Yeah.
They all concern LGBT.
But that's what's happening.
Yeah.
See, that's what's happening the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings. And it's happening for this reason. The people who form these constituencies don't have a vested interest in life as maybe a GLer would know it. Jobs, the economy, home ownership, property taxes,
inflation,
meaningful employment, entrepreneurship, competitiveness, gas prices. None of that is in their purview. They're only worried about that which affects them as a special interest group. Mm-hmm. They're only worried about that which affects them by their identity. You're useless to me, Lee Finke. You might be a hell of a human being. I'm not saying that. But you offer me nothing. You bring nothing to the table.
Just to make you feel better,
yeah.
Lee won with 81.1% of the vote. 81.1% to Trace Johnson's 18.5%.
Do you have the vote total just out of curiosity?
I do. Yeah. Lee Finke, 15,635. Trace Johnson, 3,560.
The Victory Fund is an organization that works to increase the number of openly LGBTQ elected officials at all levels of government. Well, we're seeing it in the Minneapolis City Council has trans members. I used to think, I wonder why politics is a refuge for such gender disruptions. And I've now stumbled across my answer based on what we've stumbled across yesterday. The people voting the likes of Lee Finke into office don't care anything about what I care about. They care only about what affects them personally. So thus does the legislature or a city council slowly become the medium by which personal grievances are addressed. So we're sending people to office who are there for only one reason, to affirm their individuality as a special interest group. Well, that's no way to run a country.
Right.
Yeah.
And Earl Weaver's only here for one reason.
That's right.
Just one reason.
According to its website, Victory Fund has helped elect thousands of LGBTQ candidates since 1991. Lee made history tonight because she is ready to disrupt the status quo. What is the status quo? What is the status quo?
Well, it depends on who you ask, in all seriousness.
She's ready to disrupt the status quo and fight for real change on behalf of her community. That's not why you're supposed to be there.
But it goes with what you're saying, Joe.
Bleep you, Lee.
We have acquiesced public office to people just like this. They do think that that's a chief concern among many people.
Anise Parker, and again, Lee, you might be a great person. What I'm bleeping is the idea that you can't even pretend to represent me. You can't pretend to represent anybody except LGBTQ people. Lee made history tonight because she is ready to disrupt the status quo and fight for real change on behalf of her community. Anise Parker, the president and CEO of Victory Fund, said, from safeguarding abortion, well, as Kelsey noted, we have women in this country who would rather kill their babies than feed them. From safeguarding abortion rights to addressing societal inequities, she has a vision for the future that voters are clearly enthusiastic about. I'm not, although I didn't vote for you. You're not in my district. Her win is a clear and deafening rebuke to the transphobia currently sweeping our communities, and her success will inspire the trans people to step up and run. I have no transphobia, but I also have no reason to believe that Lee Finke has anything to offer. In other words, I'm all for Lee Finke if she's the best candidate.
But
John, look up her opponent. Who is that person?
Trace Johnson.
Is that a male or female?
That's a male.
Yeah.
It looks like a young man.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find some Ballotopedia from Trace. Go ahead.
What you're really saying, Anise Parker, president and CEO of Victory Fund, is what you're really saying is we need more legislators to safeguard our issues. The hell with the rest of you.
John, based upon your reaction alone, can I offer up a suggestion as to what you're about to read?
Sure.
This falls in line with Joe's theory of in 15 years we're going to be praying for someone like Jacob Fry, isn't it? Based upon who this person defeated.
Yeah, Trace Johnson is perfect. He'd be a GL candidate from the start because in his Ballotopedia, it said, please list the 3 key messages of your campaign, main points you want voters to remember. Fight inflation, reduce taxes and fix the economy.
Yep.
Rebuild public safety and hold criminals accountable.
Yep.
Establish excellent schools and empower parents. It's a little different message than what I saw on Lee's page.
Unbelievable.
And this guy
got
lost,
3,000 votes.
and she got 81% of the votes.
Yeah, he got 18%.
There you have it, people. I mean, there's your answer to what's going on.
We have too many stupid people voting. That's our problem nationwide.
You have too many uninvested people.
Yes.
This Trace Johnson sounds like he's invested.
You're charitable, but I'm going to say stupid.
Now, I in a desperate attempt to find something positive about Lee Finke, I tried to find out what he or she has done for a living. Apparently, as an independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
And all her films, or if there's many, have had to do with race and religion or something.
Homemaker.
Filmmaker.
God, I thought about that's weird. I was thinking about that cut this morning. It's my favorite cut ever. She's worked as a multimedia producer for the ACLU. So there you go. That's
Okay, well, okay.
Hey, how are you?
And again, God bless you.
Homemaker.
I mean you no ill will as a trans person. I'm not transphobic. I'm just desperately wishing that you were an actual candidate.
And if you wanted to be an activist independent of public office, that's completely fine. Do you know what I'm saying? If you want to act on behalf of the LGBTQ community, that's great. Do as much advocating as you want, but in public office...
Your transgenderism means nothing more to this state than me collecting British cars.
Right.
Yeah.
Or wheat
Yep.
pennies.
It's that simple.
And here's the problem for me. People will hear you and say, "Oh, that Joe, he's so transphobic."
Mhm.
No, because if you
No.
took Lee and you took Trace and switched what they believe in and what they fight for, you'd
Then
be
I'd
happy
be for
to,
Lee.
You'd be happy to vote for Lee, transgender or not.
Absolutely.
See, but that's not what you'll be painted with a brush that says you're transphobic.
But Lee, you bring nothing to the public soapbox. You bring nothing to public discourse. You bring nothing to the public marketplace of ideas. You only bring your personal identity, which you apparently have decided to become a woman. Fine. But you're not a political candidate. You can do nothing for the state of Minnesota. Nothing.
Yeah. I do have one question if we can go back to the beginning of this
But
segment.
there's your answer for yesterday and today. There's what's happening. The closer you get to the tallest buildings, too many people without any investment in civic well-being are the constituents for candidates who are only too happy to reflect that.
Okay.
Yes, John?
My question may not be relevant anymore then.
That might be.
At the beginning, you said, you have people out there like football players, et cetera, begging you to vote.
Yeah.
At the time you said it, I took that to mean you're assuming they're begging you to vote liberal. Why would we assume that, I guess, is what I'm
Well,
curious
because
about.
the conservative movement, as I understand it, has never had a desperate campaign to urge people to vote. I don't care one way or the other.
Possibly the opposite, but I shouldn't say that.
Well, one way or the other, there is a movement to get people to vote.
Yes, I agree.
I don't
agree.
care what you are. What that has resulted in is this.
John, and here's why I will agree with what Joe said, because you remember a couple of years ago, and this kind of fits in with what we were talking about with Liz Collin.
Sure.
There was the whole social justice movement and getting a lot of
Right.
professional athletes to get out and vote. And obviously, you didn't need to be a brain surgeon to figure out what that was in regards to, right?
Well, it was in regards to Kaepernick and then Trump calling NFL players sons of bitches.
Well, that's,
'cause
I
they
guess,
were
what I'm trying to
kneeling,
say.
you
So
know.
that a lot of people, myself included, just inherently think that that's the same message.
Okay.
Okay.
If let's say Bosa asked people to vote,
Who?
you know what I'm saying? Bosa, because he's a well-known conservative and
Oh, sorry.
You know,
Okay.
defensive
has
line,
he?
San Francisco, online, but I've never seen an ad with him. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't ask him.
I'm despite your caterwauling, I'm
Wow.
terribly comfortable in saying that the push to vote movement comes from the left.
Okay. Well, I agree. Well, yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Why don't we?
Why don't I look that word up first? I've never heard that.
I'm just wondering why that would be a problem. That's my problem.
A
Why would
problem
be a
because you
problem
get Lee
wanting
Finke
people-
serving in legislators.
Well, but
legislatures.
the other side could say the same thing about the people who are going out to vote. For God's sake,
What do you mean?
considering who's running for each side.
No,
I mean, there's people. Gee, I wish they wouldn't vote too if they're voting.
John,
for, the
there's
Warren
no
Boeberts of the world.
John.
Yes.
Keep your thinking to strictly urban America. There's no conservatives representing urban America.
But okay, then people in rural America aren't seeing the football players' ads. I'm confused.
Yeah, but they have a vested interest in life. They have farms, they have crops to bring in, they have kids they're taking to school. If they go to vote, they're going because they're informed.
Well, okay.
Yeah, it better be okay because it's okay.
Caterwall.
Well, it's not okay, but that's
It
all right.
is okay. It is okay.
You're
Why don't we
just
come
telling
back
me
with
I'm
this
wrong.
communist newscast?
Caterwall.
I looked it up. Caterwall.
Yeah,
Caterwall.
I
Okay.
thought the last segment actually reformed what everybody thinks. Now I ruined it.
Yeah, you did.
Hey, what does this button do?
stop him. He'll just make a move. Joe Souchere.
Here's John Heidt in his newsroom.
One moment, please, while I...
Fine, I'll read an email from Bert. Here's a snapshot.
The guitar.
Here's a snapshot of what's wrong with the Republican Party. In an effort to keep up with the Democrats, who are fond of introducing many firsts, they have produced such candidates as Herschel Walker, who would be the first African-American male U.S. senator with violence-induced brain damage. I also would suggest that Democrats get down on their knees and thank whatever God they worship for Donald Trump. Were I a lefty, I would try to keep him as visible as possible. I'm right of center, but it makes me flinch left. Bert. Yeah, well, that psychopath has got to go away, or the Republicans no longer will exist. And they barely exist now.
No. Yeah.
I don't care.
No. I agree with you, and I'm wondering if there's something greater at play.
Well,
because I'm the tinfoil hat guy.
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
fine.
here's John.
Right.
Thank you, Joe. This news brought to you by Rivertown Medical Center. If you are suffering from pain, numbness, and tingling in your hands and feet, you might be suffering from peripheral neuropathy. Your doctor probably has told you you just got to live with it, not much you can do, or prescribe some drugs that don't provide a lot of relief. Well, Dr. Dan and Rivertown Medical Center in Stillwater can help you out. Neuropathy, if you're not sure what it's caused by damage to the nerves caused by a lack of blood flow that causes the nerves to begin to die off. They use regenerative medicine and regenerative cell therapy at Rivertown Medical Center, and it can provide relief if you haven't sustained 85% nerve damage. Find out more to get a free neuropathy scan. Attend a free seminar this Saturday at Best Western Plus at 10580 Baltimore Street in Blaine. You're also welcome to bring a friend to the seminar. Both can get your free neuropathy scans. Call 651-661-4311. Leave your name and cell number. You'll automatically get a text reservation for the seminar at Best Western Plus, 10580 Baltimore Street Northeast in Blaine, 651-661-4311. Dr. Dan and his crew can help you get relief from the pain of neuropathy with his breakthrough treatment from the Rivertown Medical Center in Stillwater. In the news, a new report released today indicates abnormally dry conditions have expanded in Minnesota. According to the new report from the U.S. Drought Monitor, conditions in the state range from no drought, abnormally dry, to extreme drought. Specifically, nearly 85% of Minnesota is experiencing conditions that are abnormally dry. Roughly 22% of the state is in a severe drought compared with 20% last week, and 7% is now in extreme drought compared to 6.5% last week. According to the Drought Monitor report, dry conditions, which have been mounting since the fall season, continue to dominate the upper Midwest. Looking ahead, a winter storm in the next week is expected to cross the northern plains into the upper Midwest, bringing with it some significant snowfall. Speaking of that, I just got a text while we're doing the show from my brother. They are right now up to 9.5 inches of snow in Bismarck, and they are expecting up to 8 more inches before it's all over.
Is this the heart attack stuff too, because it's so heavy?
It's 30 or 28 degrees, I think, something like that. In Bismarck.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be fairly
so
yucky.
You're writing something down, and now you're making me nervous. So you're either going to bring up something profound, or I'm going to get yelled at when we're done doing the show. Which one is it?
We both get yelled at, or he's just ignoring us completely.
I think he is.
What?
You're writing something down, which means I'm going to get yelled at, or you're thinking of something.
It's not to be read.
Gotcha.
Governor Tim Walz has ordered all flags to be flown at half-staff in honor of a Hopkins assistant fire chief who died last week. James Scanlon died Friday after going into cardiac arrest the day before. Because
we're not laughing at the story. We were not.
Good, yeah. Because he responded to a fire call earlier Thursday. His death was considered in the line of duty. He previously had worked for the Hopkins Police Department and was a dispatch supervisor for Bloomington Police.
So, do you want to bring up what you and I chatted about briefly before we started doing the show? Because we were just mentioning former President Trump.
What about him?
I wonder how many people have the same viewpoint that I do.
What's that?
Where, based upon what happened on Tuesday, some people are starting to turn even more.
Oh God, I hope so. I hope that people realize this is a psycho. He's not human.
But I'm wondering, eyes being open more,
Yes,
seeing what the
people-
ramifications
yes,
are.
Yes, people are
big
opening
picture.
their eyes.
Okay.
Yes.
Here's a weird way to get caught if you're doing something that's not legal. The Star Tribune reporting a Maplewood man has admitted to possessing homemade pipe bombs that were in pictures on a cell phone that he inadvertently left behind at a Minneapolis strip club.
Well, that's where you're going to leave one.
You can put that in the old loose leaf binder.
Never done that.
27-year-old Dylan Orr pleaded guilty in U.S. District Court to possession of an unregistered destructive device in connection with federal agents confiscating the devices on April 28th from his home in the 1200 block of Bobcat Lane. Orr remains in federal custody in the Sherburne County Jail awaiting sentencing. The plea agreement says the federal guidelines recommend a prison sentence of 2 to 2.5 years. However, federal judges have wide discretion, are not bound by those guidelines. Orr's attorney, Robert Lengeling, said Thursday his client accepts responsibility for his mistakes. Neither the criminal complaint nor any subsequent public filings in the case point to a particular motive for him having the pipe bombs. Lengeling declined to elaborate other than to say this does not appear to be a politically motivated situation. Target, based here in the Twin Cities, of course, says it plans to build a larger format store, and that's how their stores will be in the next few years. They will span nearly 150,000 square feet. That's 20,000 square feet bigger than what their stores are now.
Wait a minute. How could you get any bigger than a Target Super?
Don't they have superstores?
That's what I thought.
They do. Yes.
This is going to be bigger than a superstore?
A mega superstore.
It'd be a
Bigger
real
than
superstore.
And here's what's going to happen in those new stores. They'll offer customers more merchandise options, including an expanded grocery area, and provide 5 times the amount of backroom fulfillment space. They'll also offer larger windows. To me, that was the odd part of the story. I suppose in front of the store where you look out. I don't know. Larger windows, revamped employee spaces, more local products, and more open layout.
Because that's what I've always wondered when I'm pushing the cart down the old grocery aisle. Damn, I have a terrible view inside this Target. I wish they'd have a bigger window.
Well, I like windows.
When's the last time you were inside a Target?
Been a while.
They'll add natural elements also, like plants and reclaimed wood.
I love the people that there's 25 deep waiting for a cup of coffee at a Starbucks or whatever's inside a Target. And I'm thinking, you came to Target and you're going to wait for 45 minutes for a cup of coffee? Yeah,
I like coffee.
Yes, I do.
And I like to drink the coffee looking out a window.
Pushing your cart down a Target aisle.
No, forget the cart. Just give me the coffee in a window.
What's he doing over there? Hey, he's looking out the window.
Out the window. Stocks surging this morning after October's reading of consumer prices raised hopes that inflation has peaked. The Dow Jones jumped 820 points in early morning trading, or 2.5%. The S&P was up 4%. The Nasdaq up 5.5%. The Consumer Price Index, a broad-based measure of goods and services, rose just 0.4% for the month and 7.7% from a year ago. That's its lowest annual increase since January. Economists were expecting bigger increases. According to Dow Jones, excluding food and energy costs, so-called core CPI increased only 0.3% for the month, and the experts say this is all good news. A lot of economists have warned that in continuing to tighten credit, the central bank is likely to cause a recession by next year. So they're hoping this means that no more credit will be tightened by the feds.
You will get an extended report on that very subject with Mr. Money Talk at the conclusion of the broadcast.
Ukraine urged caution about Russia's announced withdrawal from the southern city of Kherson as its forces advanced slowly toward the city, and U.S. officials estimated 100,000 troops on each side had been killed or wounded since the war began. Russia said on Wednesday it was pulling troops from Kherson and surrounding areas, but officials in Kyiv have warned that the Russian claim could be a way of luring Ukrainian soldiers into a bloody fight for the city, where signs suggest Russia still has a sizable contingent of forces and has booby-trapped key objects of infrastructure to slow Ukraine's advance.
Bill Stein weighs in. We, the people of greater Minnesota, after decades of being jerked around, hereby declare our independence from the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul to form a new Minnesota with its capital located in the new Twin Cities of Brainerd-Baxter. We reserve the right to maintain the name Minnesota. We suggest the new state of Minneapolis-St. Paul be called New Euphoria. If the Congress of the U.S. will not let us maintain our name, we will be known as East Dakota.
Ah,
all right.
Okay.
East Dakota. Huh. Have you guys seen, speaking of Brainerd, it's gone viral now, the picture of the gigantic snapping turtle?
Yes,
Oh
big.
my
It's a big
God.
turtle.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had claws.
Oh yeah, you can
Did you
get
see
them.
those things?
You can get
You've
'em.
never known that?
Oh, you can get them.
I guess not. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it
Well,
was
okay,
huge.
then let's ask the question. Where did it come from?
Up from the river.
Oh,
Mississippi goes right through Brainerd.
The White House said
Right
President
like this.
Bi-
Goes right through.
go, guys. I'm going to get up to Brainerd.
The White House said President Biden planning his first face-to-face meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping since taking office, as distrust and tensions between the powers run high after renewed disputes over Taiwan and U.S. technology controls. The two are to meet Monday in Bali, Indonesia, talk about efforts to maintain communication, responsibly manage competition, and work together where our interests align, according to the White House on Thursday morning.
You know, John, at that very press conference, you know, he was given a list of questions he was supposed to be asked. Did you know that?
No.
Now, I've been given a list of 10 people that I'm supposed to call on, and you're all supposed to ask me one question, but I'm sure you'll ask me more. And so let me start off with a list I've been given. Zeke Miller, Associated.
So he's maybe he wasn't supposed to announce that he had a list.
I think he said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
Where he's got the list of people he's supposed to call on.
I pray to God that his health survives to complete his term. Because I
understand.
I
yes.
couldn't take Kamala Harris. I just really would have a problem
All right,
with that.
serious question then.
Yeah.
What's their plan?
Well, they're just to get him through the next 2 years.
But they got to start. They've already had to start thinking about this now.
He can't run again. He can't. He might claim that he intends to, but he won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what if they say, Mr. President, do you plan on running again? And he says, run from what?
Fetterman could be a good candidate, I think.
The president actually said, Chris, in the last couple of days, he hinted he may make an announcement soon.
So did the psychopath.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Yeah.
Hopefully, Governor Walz. Maybe Governor Walz might. He's done such a top drawer job here.
Is that audio from DeSantis worth playing? Ron DeSantis?
It's really long.
Oh,
it's about, but it is good. You know what I'll do? I'll post it as a link on the show.
You know what DeSantis must do? Never mention Trump's name. Just never mention it. DeSantis is actually sane and would be a leader of a Republican Party that could at least be understandable. But these...
How shocking is what happened in Florida? Shocking.
Not at all.
I didn't think so either.
Not at
But
all.
there are a lot of people that are painting it as pretty shocking.
I don't think it's shocking at all.
No, I don't either.
Say tonight, this is apropos of nothing. Tonight, what is this Thursday night football game?
Oh, it's awful. It's Carolina and...
No, it's somebody at Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay. Hurricane.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. You're
Hurricane.
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Who's the matchup? Don't give a damn.
I don't care, man.
Watching the
There's a
hurricane.
hurricane. I think it's Cleveland at Charlotte.
It's Atlanta.
Atlanta at whatever they're called.
Panthers.
Carolina. But the storm path is right through that stadium.
Will they play?
I don't know. That's a great question.
I always forget that you don't give a damn about the game. You're only tuning in for weather.
Give me wind, rain, and blizzards.
Speaking of politics, Tuesday night's disappointing results for the GOP are raising new questions. I think Chris already brought them up about former President Donald Trump's appeal and the future of a party that has fully embraced him while at the same time giving new momentum to his most potent potential rival. Some Trump allies are calling on Trump to delay his planned announcement next week, saying the party's full focus needs to be on Georgia. where Trump-backed Herschel Walker's effort to unseat Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock is headed to a runoff that could once again determine the control of the Senate. Former Trump advisor Jason Miller spent the night with Trump at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida and said, I advised him that he move his announcement until after the Georgia runoff. He added, Georgia needs to be the focus of every Republican in the country right now. A blood test detecting Alzheimer's years before symptoms show is moving closer, according to a new study.
I don't want to take that.
You don't want to know?
I don't want to know.
Follows a breakthrough.
Unless they can do something about it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of their plan. It follows a breakthrough in identifying chemicals linked to mild cognitive impairment, an early sign of Alzheimer's. And testing for them could lead to patients having drugs or lifestyle changes prescribed earlier. The latest discovery is from tests that identified 2 rogue proteins in the brains of those with the mild cognitive impairment. It's a transitional stage between normal aging and dementia, leading to minor memory lapses that sometimes become more serious. The proteins show up in plasma, the yellowish liquid that carries blood cells around the body. It means those biomarkers might be spotted with a simple blood test rather than other invasive and costly techniques. Researcher Professor Bin Zhu of Central University in North Carolina said, our work provides a new avenue for developing diagnosis and differentiation tools for Alzheimer's that, he said, could help clinicians intervene early.
Former President Trump was asked the other day about the various endorsements that he had handed out across the country to certain candidates and what he thought about the results of those particular candidates.
Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit, and if they lose, I should not be blamed at all, okay? But it'll probably be just the opposite.
He's a sociopathic psycho.
Mr. President, how should I feel about my fantasy football roster?
Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit, and if they lose, I should not be blamed at all.
I agree completely.
You love that.
And you can and you GLers who are frustrated with me, you can buy that, huh? You can get behind that kind of moron. His brain stopped when he was 7. I don't know what disturbed childhood he had, but it wasn't a good one.
Mr. President, if I ask a lot of great questions during an interview on Garage Logic and our ratings go through the roof, what do you think that will happen as a result of that?
Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit, and if they lose, I should not be blamed at all. Okay.
Oh, I'm saving this one.
I'd like to point out to the GLers that John Heidt, the news guy, had nothing to do with any of this. So there, take that.
I'm confident that GLers are starting to see the light with this guy.
The reason I asked that is I got a really great email from a GLer that I've not sparred with, but conversed with over the course of the years that I think has finally seen the light.
Look,
I have too.
This guy is ruinous.
Mm-hmm.
Ruinous. And any chance at all for a Republican Party, however newly it will have to be invented and constructed, cannot exist with this psychopath lingering over it.
But I think I get it. The people that are still clinging to it, I think I get why, though. In all seriousness, it's because he still, to those people, represents the anti-establishment.
That's
and
fine.
I think a lot of people are starving for that,
No,
myself included.
I understand that.
Lifelong politicians.
That.
You know what I mean?
I understand that. But we're talking about a mental illness. We're talking about a mentally flawed guy, a disturbed guy. He's not going to be helpful.
Just when it seemed the high-flying art market couldn't soar any higher, paintings and sculptures from the collection of Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen hit the $1.5 billion mark at Christie's, New York on Wednesday night, making it the biggest sale ever in auction history. The first of 2 Allen sales, it shattered a 6-month-old record of $922 million. That was set at Sotheby's for art from Harry and Linda Macklow. They were spouses and they were fighting a lot and they got divorced. They sold their entire art collection for the $922 million. The auction of the art of Allen, who died back in 2018, generated a new level of excitement not typically seen in the often jaded art world. A lot of very important art collectors who I could give you their names, but I've never heard of them, and I don't suppose many people have, were there for all of this. The sale hit $1 billion at lot 32, selling of Alberto Giancomette's graceful standing nude called Femme de Venise 3, which sold for $25 million on an estimate of 15 to 20 million. That development, however, was not announced by the auctioneer at the time. Those in the room were unaware that the art market had just made history. By the time everything was all done, it was all worth $1.5 billion just in day one.
I think if I was a billionaire, I'd have some art.
Think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Where would you put it? In the
Pictures
garage?
of parks and stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Pictures of parks,
wildlife, stuff like that.
I'm going to guess you would have no art that you couldn't actually look at and say there's a house or there's a tree or there's a river, right?
No, all my art would be identifiable.
Yep.
Yeah, none of this clocks with eyeballs coming out of it. You know, Johnny, thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to tell you, Tim, I'm waiting, and if I'm last, that's fine because he's busy. EcoFun Motorsports, storing motorcycles, scooters, electric bikes for the winter at 2 locations. The Forest Lake EcoFun Motorsports is brand new this summer, immediately west of Interstate 35E on 97. You can't miss it. They've got the golf carts, the scooters, the bikes, the youth recreational equipment, helmet, apparel. Great people. The store that opened this summer in Burnsville on the Garage Logic Service Road of Life near County Road 42 and 35.
It's literally right off the freeway.
35. That would be 35W over there, right? And I know the date in mind for my purchase of the Crossfire 200 golf cart.
You do?
The date in mind. I think around Thanksgiving week, if Tim still has time to store it.
Okay.
Huh.
And he's going to pick up.
That's for the staff, right? So I can borrow it for, like 4th of July week, things like that.
No, I would not let. No one can touch it.
Okay.
No one can touch it. Well, yeah, you could, because I'm going to get the dump box and then dump you out somewhere as we go tearing through the woods. This is EcoFun Motorsports. Those Bintelli e-bikes, of course, the scooters that turn urban air into new adventures. Winter storage, if you buy now, I think they'll keep it for you over the winter, and that really frees up your garage space, and then you have that great new toy to look forward to in the spring. Find out much more at ecofunmotorsports.com.
Go, Dylan.
Latte schmate. Here's Joe Souchere.
Later tonight, they'll be around a campfire in their backyard.
Chilly campfire tonight.
These boys can play.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, the Heights. Thank you, the Heights. Joe, catching up on the podcast after a bunch of days preparing for and hunting the Minnesota deer. When I got home, the CP had my mail neatly stacked on my computer in my office, and much to my surprise, I came across the big white envelope containing my GL Town Council membership inclusions. Oh. I think I was number 800 when it came to your signature on my certificate, which is on some nice heavy paper stock, I might add. Upon opening my packet and looking at the contents, in particular the certificate, I noticed the signature, and for a comparison, I went out to the road in front of my place where I proudly displayed the stars and stripes along with my GL flag and looked at your signature on the flag and then the certificate. Yep, number 800. No problem here, though. Just happened to be part of the club. Good luck, JC in Stone Lake, Wisconsin.
Huh.
And this one says, GL Crybabies.
Uh-oh.
GL Up. Listening to the podcast yesterday, and this certainly is not a GL way of thinking. Pour some seafoam on your wounds and get back to work. You're sitting on the answer to change, but you're too busy trying to figure out how to accept defeat. Knock it off. GL's infamous guest figured it out. Jesse went after the failed academy and got the votes. The Republicans are Garage Logic thinking. They only need a few younger voters, and that's where the Dems excel. So What could Republicans do? Leverage the influencers. Even Katy Perry voted red. Elon Musk would be good. GLers, go where the younger voters are and speak their language. Yes, Joe, that's the social media you don't like. It's like fishing. You move when you're not catching anything. Trade schools where you find hardworking problem solvers. Start with high school age kids. Teach them to think like a GLer and question mainstream ideas. For example, find alternative ideas to EVs, such as improving renewable energy for home and business. Homes and businesses all are already connected to the power grid. Finally, start linking. Half the kids in high school will be voting in 2 years. Get the idea? This needs to be nationwide. Minnesota is not alone. Now crying time is over. And only 2 years until the presidential election. Back to the GL we love. Keep pushing back, damn it. GL Todd in Rochester.
Love it, Todd.
Well, I think his scolding is worth paying attention to.
And you know what? He's right. I was despondent yesterday, and today I've said, bleep it. Nothing you can do about it now except move forward. He's right.
Hail the flashlight king.
Hail you.
I need a mayoral ruling. As a result of this recent election, I have won my bid for a seat on the City of Marine on St. Croix Town Council. My dilemma is I'm also a member in good standing of the Garage Logic Town Council and the Royal Order of 21sters. Am I allowed to serve on both councils? Yes. And if so, are there any special perks for pulling double duty? No. Respectfully, years in advance and always pushing back. Bill Miller, Marine on the St. Croix. Yes, you get to be a member of both councils.
No conflict of interest whatsoever?
No.
Got it.
Only because they come to us all the way from Marloth Park at Mpumalanga, South Africa, from the traveling Lymans at worldwidewaftage.com. It was on this day.
Joe, today is November 10th.
In 1851, the Sisters of St. Joseph Carondelet opened a school for girls in St. Paul, enrolling 14 pupils and holding classes in the former chapel of St. Paul. Originally named St. Mary's, their school would eventually be known as St. Joseph's Academy. My mom's a graduate. St. Joe's Academy is where they took Pig's Eye Perrant's wood house, and then the workmen there didn't know what it was, so they burned it for firewood.
That's right.
Remember that?
Did we talk to that guy?
On this day in 1871, Cretin High School opened in St. Paul. Named for Joseph Cretin, the first bishop of the Diocese of St. Paul, the school would merge with Durham Hall High School in 1987.
When did they start recruiting? What year was that?
On this day in 1880, Captain R.H.L. Jewett received from the government a shipment of young carp with which to stock Rice County's lakes. A government commission had been formed in response to European immigrants' demands for the fish.
And now you know what they do every year on those same exact lakes?
Try to get rid of them?
They get rid of them every spring. Because
On
my
this
folks
day-
live right by that area where they
On
do that.
this day in 1975,
November 10th.
the ore boat Edmund Fitzgerald sunk in Lake Superior, and 29
right.
crew members were lost. 29 souls.
They did a song about that, you know.
Now, I remember distinctly that week in 1975. The weather was exactly like it's been right today, where it's been warm and humid. And obviously, given the turmoil of this time of year, nature conspired then to wallop up that great storm in the Great Lakes, which became what? What did that become as it moved east? It became the perfect storm off the coast of Massachusetts, from which a great book ensued and a great movie. Although we had the author on for, and he was just a total turd. Just
the
a
Clooney
jerk.
movie? Is that one?
Yeah.
That movie?
Yeah. No, I don't think it was
that?
Clooney.
No? Okay.
Who was it?
Wait, why do I not
maybe-
remember the interview?
Well, 1991. That might have been before your time.
Oh, it was way before my time.
You want to sing those lyrics, Joe? I thought you might like to sing it like Mishke did.
Well, the world get down. On this day in 1976,
Joe, today is November 10th.
Governor Wendell R. Anderson announced that he would fill newly elected Vice President Walter Mondale's U.S. Senate seat. He resigned as governor and was replaced by Lieutenant Governor Rudy Perpich, who then appointed Anderson to complete Mondale's term. The move ended Anderson's political career and made Perpich's.
Whoops.
Anderson would not earn re-election to the Senate in 1978. Who did? Rudy Boschwitz, I think?
Good question.
But Perpich would serve out Anderson's term and be elected governor again in 1982. Yeah, Wendy got a little greedy there.
Okay.
And that cost him his Minnesota political future.
Gotcha.
Welcome, Mr. Gumbinger, to our talk show. It's a pleasure to have you on with us.
Is this Gordon or Joe?
This has interested me
not Joe.
for many a
Talking
year.
to
Please that at
Mischke.
last we can discuss this.
How you doing, Joe?
God.
That's not Joe.
How you doing,
T.D.
Joe?
Mischke, sir.
Yeah, TD
T.D.
Mischke.
Mischke, sir.
Yeah, not Joe.
He said, I
Not
talked to
Joe.
Tommy about that, and he said the guy was so tired from doing interviews that he thought it was wonderful because he was just sick of answering questions.
Yeah,
So he said the guy told him, I had a blast once. Because
That's
Tommy
good.
asked every question that way.
I know.
He's
It was
saying
fun.
every
The whole
question.
interview. It's on the CD. But he thought he was talking to Such, not Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's so great.
Thank
It
you,
was,
GLers.
Rudy
There's
Boschwitz.
much I didn't get to today, but much of it will be pertinent tomorrow. Thank you to Liz Collin. Her book is called They're Lying, The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd.
We could always do a 4-hour show today.
We might as well, huh?
Welcome, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say it was Boschwitz. That beat
Yeah,
Wendy
it was
Anderson,
very good.
so.
Oh,
I know my
Rudy.
politics.
Oh,
There you
Rudy. GLers, do us a favor if you wouldn't mind. Join the town council, as Joe has just mentioned, for just $10 a month.
I signed 37 new certificates today.
Look at that. All of them with pristine signature.
The first one was to a guy named Pete Leatherman.
Okay.
Well, that'll be legible.
Sure. Number
You can
37?
recognize it. Carla Burke.
Oh, Carla.
Carla, I
sorry.
apologize.
Okay.
You got an X.
So, if you'd like an unlegible signature from the mayor himself, sign up for the town council. And while you're at it, how about YouTube? We're posting daily content on YouTube, and follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Insta. It's all there for you. Time once again to check in with Mr. Money Talk Josh Arnold. Time for you to do the same, GLers. Pick up that phone and make that call for that free 48-minute financial consultation by dialing 952-925-5608. That number once again is 952-925-5608. You call that number, you get Josh, and you're always going to get straight talk. You're never going to get sugar-coated advice. And Josh is on the line with us once again. And boy, Josh, where to begin today post-election? You were right, though. We need to start here. You were right about inflation possibly coming down.
How do you like that, Sergeant Carter? My goodness. The inflation numbers coming down have finally hit the CPI report. And this is something that we have been talking about on this program and other programs for months now, that the Federal Reserve is not paying attention to real-time data. And real-time data has indicated that inflation numbers have been coming down. They have not been going up. Yes, of course, there are still places that inflation and prices are higher. Heck, when I go to my favorite restaurants, whether it's Cecil's in St. Paul, and the cost of the tuna fish sandwich has gone up, $1.50 to $2. That's inflationary. Of course, I do notice there's a lot more help at Cecil's over on Cleveland Avenue across from St. Kate. Cove in Edina in the Galleria, another of my favorite places. Yes, prices have continued to go up. Yes, that's part of labor costs more than anything else. Yes, Jimmy's over in Eden Prairie. Prices have gone up. I recognize that. And the cost of my donuts has also gone up. But price of gasoline at the pump has come down. The price of steel has come down. The price of aluminum has come down. Price of copper has come way down, although recently copper prices have started moving up, which could be an indicative, really, of the potential of China reopening. Rents have leveled off. Housing prices have come down, and housing prices and rents are a good chunk of the CPI number. Used car prices have also come down, and while we're not talking about used car prices, we do know that General Motors is having trouble pricing vehicles, and that's been reflected in a recent downgrade of General Motors stock. I love cars. I consider myself a car guy, but I have not been an investor in car companies. Too many issues going on. But a big thing for the market today was the CPI number coming in lower than expected. That gave a big boost to the indices and a nice sigh of relief from this investor, something that I have been waiting for quite some time. Yields have come down, which means bond prices have gone up. That is also a plus for the market. Earnings have continued to come in. I'm not going to say better than expected, but not as bad as has been expected. Guidance from companies has continued to be conservative going into the next quarter. So that is a recognition on the part of many companies of a slowing economy, and they're preparing for that. Additionally, there are numerous companies that have been cutting back on staff, which is something the Fed Reserve wants to see. When the Fed next meet in December, I think the betting, at least at this point, would indicate that the Fed will slow down their pace of increase. And again, that should be positive for stocks.
Excellent report, Mr. Money Talk. You heard him, GLers. Now's as good a time as ever to check in and make the call for that free 48-minute financial consultation by doing just what I did. Pick up the phone and dial 952-925-5608, a number that will always give you straight talk and never sugar-coated advice. Josh, once again, thank you so much for the time and the chat. Have a great rest of your day, a fantastic weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
You got it. Thanks, Chris.
Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC, a security investment advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk. All comments and opinions are Josh Arnold's and do not constitute investment advice.
Chris Reavers is a paid endorser.